last minute webinar here. We just had some time on the calendar. Like, let's answer questions. Let's have some fun. That's what we're doing tonight. So this is going to be a really, really fun time. Let's go to the chat box here, and you guys can mention where you're coming from. I want to know what type of diabetes you're living with and where you're coming from. And I'm also going to start a poll so we can vote also about what type of diabetes you're living with, and we can see who is here tonight. So check out the poll, and in the chat box, let us know where you're coming from. Cyrus will be popping in here in a moment here, and we're going to have some fun. So let's see here. Got 52 people with us already. I like it. You guys are on time, right at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're getting started here, and you guys are ready to go. So this is just going to be a Q&A. We're gonna do a Q&A. We're gonna call you if you want us to call you, so you can put your phone number in the chat box, and we'll give you a call. We'll have a conversation, answer any questions we can about anything about diabetes health. That's what we're here for. Nothing is off limits. If you read the email, you could even ask Cyrus about his shampoo, which is kind of funny because Cyrus is bald. So I hope you guys laughed at that. So put your phone number in. Let us know where you're coming from. Vote on the poll. You can also type a question in the chat box. I believe there's a way to DM your phone number. That's also an option. And we can call you. So Cyrus and I were just in North Carolina. We were at Plant Stock, and we had a lot of fun there. There were almost 600 people from really all over the country. I'm sure there were plenty of international people as well. And we had a great time. So we did a presentation together called Friends Don't Let Friends Do Keto. That was quite well received by the audience. A lot of interest in that topic right now. It's like everywhere I turn, somebody is saying something about keto, whether it's the best thing ever and it's just transforming somebody's life, or you have, everybody in the plant-based world sending out a newsletter, doing a video, giving a talk at a conference of why people should not do keto. It's all over the place. It's fascinating. Very interesting topic. Can be quite confusing. So we got Duluth, Minnesota. Deborah, I love that. I grew up in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I've been to Duluth several times. Let's see. We got Jag from Seattle. Excellent. We got Lynn from California. We got Vegan from North Carolina. All right. What's up, Vegan? We have Barbara from Ellicott City, Maryland. All right. Good to have you here, Barbara. Ecuador. Mary from Ecuador. Welcome. Good to have you here. All right. We got a phone number. Okay. I like that. Let's see what we can do with that one. We got Bonnie from Ottawa. Hi, we are both here. Husband and wife from California. Fantastic. Excellent. Let's see what I got on the poll so far. Wow, 9% with type 1 diabetes. We always love seeing that type 1 diabetes number increasing. As you all know, Cyrus and I are both living with type 1. We have 16% with prediabetes. Type 2 is 44%. And a strong amount don't have diabetes or a loved one has diabetes. It's almost 30% at this point. Very cool. All right. Good stuff. All right, we got another phone number. That's good. Let me check and see what we got for Cyrus. All right. The latest update I have here is Cyrus is restarting his computer. So we'll get him in here shortly. We have Ken from Hilo, Hawaii. You guys have a fantastic farmer's market. I've been there, and I hope you're getting some good mangoes at this time of year. These mangoes behind me, they're the green ones. These are Kent's. They're a combination of Kent's and Keats. And I got some yellow dragon fruit back there. got some pears, got some Meridol papaya. Stocked up. All right, we have Christina here. Ron, type 1.5. All right, glad to have you with us. We have Robin. Let's see who else is here. Michelle from Central Point, Oregon. Welcome. Cyrus, how you doing, man?
Finally got it to work. Sorry about that, guys. My computer was glitching for some silly reason.
No worries. People are coming in. We got almost 170 people here.
Awesome.
We got a strong contingent of type 1s tonight, almost up to 10%.
Wow.
We have a strong amount of people that don't have diabetes or a loved one has diabetes. That is at 30%.
Okay.
Pre-diabetes type 2 closing in on about 60. So there you have it.
All right. I dig it. Hey, so super glad to be here today, guys. Glad you could join us. I don't really know how many people to expect. Maybe 200 people today. We kind of, because it was a last-minute webinar announcement, I don't know if that many people had the chance to actually schedule this and make it happen for them. But, the good news is that you guys are here, and we purposely scheduled it so that we don't really have an agenda. We want you guys to drive the agenda. So if you got questions, you want to bring those to the table, we'll literally just go through all the questions we can. And, we'll do our best to answer anything that you guys have. So please ask.
Absolutely. So, like Cyrus said, we're just here to answer questions. There's no slide deck tonight. We're just here to talk. Although you never know, Cyrus, maybe people might want to see that keto slide deck. Friends don't let friends do keto, but maybe we'll save that for a different webinar.
Yeah, that's another good webinar. I did a presentation at a conference called Plant Stock, and the name of the presentation, just like you said, is called "Friends Don't Let Friends Eat Keto" or "Friends Don't Let Friends Keto." And we went through all of the evidence, like the things that people in the ketogenic world say versus what the scientific evidence actually shows. And we were sort of saying, okay, well, people in the ketogenic world make this statement, but the science shows the opposite. We did this over and over and over again. But we also wanted to be very open and honest about the fact that there are benefits, believe it or not, there are benefits to doing a ketogenic diet. There really are. It's just that those benefits tend to be very short-lived. And then in the long term, you can end up actually damaging many tissues in your body. So maybe we'll do that on a separate webinar. But it was definitely really fun. We had a good time.
Yeah, we definitely had a good time. So I am seeing lots of great questions coming in the chat box here. And we have our wonderful director of lifestyle management here at Mastering Diabetes, Kylie Buckner, is in the background. She's on the chat box. She'll be writing to you in the chat, but also helping us compile the questions. So we will be keeping track of them, and we will answer what is on the spreadsheet, and then we will also definitely do phone calls. So Kylie's keeping track of your phone numbers, and we will we'll give you a call.
Okay, so let's go to it. We got a lot of questions already popping in. You start time?
No, I'm just doing that right now.
Okay. We're 7 minutes behind. Okay, so here we go. Here's the first question. How long, when changing to a plant-based diet, do you normally take to see results? Okay, and this question came from Mika. So Mika, thanks for the question. Okay, so this is a really good question. The way that I would answer this question is I would say it depends on what type of plant-based diet you are eating, because not all plant-based diets are created equal. If you, for example, are eating a plant-based diet that happens to contain a significant amount of processed foods, and these are things like plant-based burgers or plant crackers or soy ice cream or enchiladas that are plant-friendly. If you're eating those types of things that come from packages in the grocery store, then chances are it could take a while for you to see improvements in your diabetes health and in your cardiovascular health. And it can also take a long time to start losing weight, and maybe weight loss may not even happen if you're eating those packaged foods. However, if you're eating like Robbie and I like to describe, which is to eat a whole food plant-based diet, and when I say whole food plant-based diet, I literally mean more than 90% of all the foods that go into your mouth are whole foods that are not packaged, are not processed, and they just are found in nature. If you're eating that way, then your chances of losing weight, improving your cardiovascular health, dropping your blood pressure, dropping your cholesterol, improving your insulin sensitivity, we're going to go way up. And what we normally see is that people normally get results within the first 24 to 48 hours. I kid you not. And what I mean by that is they get improved blood glucose values and they start to feel more energy. And then usually by the time a week rolls around, they start to noticeably have more energy consistently, and their blood glucose values tend to get better and better and better. Usually by 2 weeks, definitely by 4 weeks, people are starting to see some dramatic changes in their blood glucose values and also in their medication requirements, whether it's an oral medication or whether it's insulin. So, in the chat box, let us know, how compliant are you? When I say compliant, I mean how whole food is your diet? How low fat is your diet? If you're truly low fat, less than 15%, and you're truly whole food, then you should see the results real quickly.
Yeah, I'm actually love to see the responses that come in the chat box of that one. Where are you guys at? What is your compliance lately? Curious.
Okay. Deborah asks, any suggestions for high cholesterol? I've been whole food plant-based for 2 years, off of insulin, blood pressure medication, but my cholesterol keeps going up. I eat SOS free. Okay. So Deborah, if you're eating 100% plant-based diet and your cholesterol is going up, what that indicates is that your liver, you likely are living with a highly insulin-resistant liver. Okay. And now the reason I say that is because a highly insulin-resistant liver, even if you're not eating cholesterol, will still manufacture cholesterol in large quantities. So the way to minimize that is to, number one, eliminate, you said all oil. You're SOS free, so that's actually a really good thing. And if you're whole food plant-based, one thing that we would recommend is keeping your total fat content low. Are you below 15%? Okay, are you below 15%? Likely, or more importantly, if you can get down below 10%, that's going to make a big difference. Number two, are you eating legumes, beans, peas, lentils, and does that make up a majority of your diet? Sorry, not a majority. Does that make up a substantial amount of your calorie intake? The reason I say that is because a lot of the times people who eat a lot of fruit and a lot of potatoes end up increasing their triglyceride values and their cholesterol levels. And when people minimize their fruit intake and potato intake temporarily, they see improvements in their cardiovascular health. So if that is at play for you, then that might be one place that I would start, simply by reducing your fruit and potato intake by 3 months or for 3 months, and then rechecking your cholesterol values. That might be a simple thing that you can do to actually start dropping your cholesterol once again.
All right. So Joy asks, can you do your program using 80-10-10 guidelines or just fruits and veggies and minimum nuts or seeds and no grains or beans? So the answer is yes, you absolutely can follow the Mastering Diabetes method by eating primarily, what's described in Doug Graham's book, The 80-10-10 Diet. You definitely can do that. But we do want to be clear with, a little caveat that our entire program is based on evidence-based research. That's what we've developed here. And we can't go and show you some studies where people have been doing that exact diet for the long term. So it's a personal choice. It's really at that point, it's like, you get to weigh the benefits and the risks of what may or may not happen in the long term. We, work with on our summits and speak with, they have a little bit of concerns of what might happen in the long term, but nobody really knows for sure. So it's completely a personal choice. Our program is definitely designed to include a broad range of calorie-dense whole plant foods. So that's fruits, that is starchy vegetables, legumes, and intact whole grains. Those are the 4 primary categories to build your meals around. And research has shown there is benefits to all of those categories. That's the truth. Those are the facts. There's a lot of information coming out about the microbiome and the benefits of diversity. And we have our good friend, Dr. B, who talks about that a lot. So it's just, the answer is yes, but, with the caveat of saying, we don't have evidence that that's exactly what's going to happen in the long term.
Okay. Trevor asked another really good question. He says, I'm having lots of difficulty going from a ketogenic diet to a whole food plant-based diet, controlling my blood glucose as a person with type 1 diabetes. How do you take insulin on this kind of diet? Okay, Trevor, this is a phenomenal question because we get this question a lot of the time. Okay, let's back up here real quick. If you're eating a ketogenic diet, even if it's a plant-based ketogenic diet, regardless of whether it's plant or animal, your level of insulin resistance grows over the course of time. So let's say you've been eating a ketogenic diet for 3 months or 6 months or a year. Okay, likely your level of insulin resistance is relatively high to begin with, your baseline level of insulin resistance. Now, when you transition to the Mastering Diabetes method, what we recommend doing is dropping your fat intake and simultaneously increasing your carbohydrate intake. The risk that somebody who's been eating a ketogenic diet runs is that if you're already insulin resistant to begin with, if you start to eat a lot of carbohydrates, even if they come from whole foods, then it floods your bloodstream with glucose, and it's very difficult to control your blood glucose values. So my guess is that that's what you're experiencing right now. Anytime you eat a banana, anytime you have some fruit or a potato or some quinoa or something like that, then your blood glucose likely goes way up, and it becomes challenging to try and control that. Here's my recommendation to you. Rather than trying to make large changes to your carbohydrate intake right off the bat, what I would do is I would make more gradual changes, and you will likely see that your insulin sensitivity starts to come up gradually over the course of time. So what I mean by that is, rather than trying to eat large fruit bowls, or rather than trying to eat sort of like higher glycemic carbohydrates, I would instead increase my intake of legumes, so beans and lentils and peas, and non-starchy vegetables. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that for the next week, you started to eat more beans, more lentils, more non-starchy vegetables, and more peas, and that became the sort of base of your diet. Then your blood glucose values will become a lot more controllable, and as a result of that, your insulin needs will also reduce. Then, as you gain insulin sensitivity over the course of 3 days, 7 days, 10 days, judge it, and if you see your blood glucose values are starting to come down, increase by adding 1 fruit, and then maybe the next day add 2 fruits, and so on and so forth. And that way you can kind of like ramp up your fruit intake over the course of a week to 2 weeks, and that will prevent your blood glucose from going sky high every time you do eat a fruit, and you'll be sort of gaining insulin sensitivity and adding fruit to match that increase in insulin sensitivity. So I hope that makes sense. I remember at the very beginning of this process, my blood glucose was much more controllable, but there were times where I had to dose up on large amounts of insulin because I already had a significant amount of baseline insulin resistance to begin with. So I feel you. I totally understand where you're coming from, but trust me, doing a more gradual approach is going to make a big, big, big difference.
All right, next up we have Nora, type 2. I have been doing the Engine 2 7-day rescue diet strictly, and my blood sugars are still high, using 15 units AM and PM of Lantus and Novolog as needed. Novolog. Wondering how to get my blood sugars lower. Okay, Nora, I think we're going to need a little bit more information. I guess, how long have you been doing the Engine 2 7-day rescue? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, have you had a C-peptide test or a fasting insulin test to measure and see what's going on with your insulin production? So put those questions up. We got answers. So 2 weeks. All right. 2 weeks into 7-day review. What do you got about the C-peptide? Do you have a result or a fasting insulin? Getting that done this coming Monday. Great. So I think a lot of what Cyrus just said for the previous question can apply to you as well. Really just focusing on some of the less carbohydrate heavy, energy dense stuff in the beginning. It's not really the solution for the long term, but in the beginning, the transition, there's certain foods you can focus on. And anytime you do eat, something like a mango or grapes or something like that, you would really want to make sure that you are including greens or non-starchy vegetables, or maybe even beans or something, if it makes sense, in conjunction. And that is going to help in your process of reversing insulin resistance, which is the cause of type 2 diabetes in the first place. So stay in touch with us. Let us know what happens with your insulin, with your C-peptide and fasting insulin. Fascinating.
Okay, next
All
question.
right. What damage do high protein diets do?
Oh, great question, Patricia. High protein diets do a lot of damage. Okay, so first and foremost, you've probably been told that protein helps stabilize your blood glucose. Protein does not stabilize your blood glucose. Protein does the exact opposite. Protein actually elevates your blood glucose. There's actually some really interesting research that shows that you can take a person with type 1 diabetes and you can feed them a low protein meal, and then you can monitor their blood glucose over the course of the next 5 hours. You sort of can see how their blood glucose rises after a meal, and then it comes right back down, and it's that sort of like nice predictable curve. You can then take the same person the next day, you can feed them the same meal, except you can increase the protein content. So you're basically just increasing protein and you're decreasing carbohydrate. Okay, when you do that, all of a sudden now their blood glucose rises a little bit, comes back down, and then in the like 3 to 5 hour window after the meal, their blood glucose starts to go back up again. And so it's called this late postprandial glucose excursion, which is just a fancy scientific way of saying your blood glucose goes up after 3 to 5 hours after the meal. So if you have ever experienced that yourself, then you may know what I'm talking about. And even if you're not living with type 1 diabetes, you just have type 2 diabetes, what you're doing is you're forcing your pancreas to have to work a little bit harder 3 to 5 hours after the meal in order to keep that protein from elevating your blood glucose too high. That's number one. Number two, high protein diets can also tend to make your kidney work in overdrive for a long period of time. And the reason for that is because your kidney performs a whole collection of metabolic reactions. And one of them requires actually taking protein from your blood and actually getting rid of it and putting it directly into the toilet. So your kidney has to do this thing called the urea cycle, and it's effectively manufacturing urea, which is what gives your urine that yellow color. In order to manufacture urea, it's taking protein out of your blood, it's reorganizing it, it's breaking it apart, it's making this stuff called urea, and then it's making water, and then it puts it in the toilet. In the process of performing the urea cycle, especially when you're asking your kidney to filter large amounts of protein over the course of time, your kidney can get very, very sluggish, and then its filtration rate can go down, and it can end up becoming very inflamed. And so there's many research studies that actually show that people who eat high protein diets actually have more inflamed kidneys over the course of their life, and that leads to worse, like shorter kidney health. And the last thing that I will say is that people who eat high protein diets have also been shown to just live less days on this planet. There's this thing called all-cause mortality, which effectively is a metric for the length of an individual's life or their risk for premature death. And what some studies have shown, these are very large-scale studies that are done in hundreds of thousands of people over the course of 10 to 15 years, is they show that people who eat higher protein diets, especially if the protein comes from animal products, but not if the protein comes from plant products, that when they eat these high-protein animal-based diets, that they live a shorter period of time. So they're what's called their risk for all-cause mortality goes up, which means that they're on this planet for a shorter period of time. Again, if you're eating a slightly higher plant-based protein intake, that problem doesn't occur. So, protein can be problematic, but it's especially problematic when it comes from the animal world.
Perfect. You answered the question that came in the chat box. Somebody was like, what happens if you eat a lot of beans? Isn't that a high protein diet? But you answered that.
Boom. Just answered that question. Some people call me telepathic. It happens. That was a joke. Nobody laughed.
Okay, how does your diet recommendation address the law of small numbers that Dr. Bernstein talks about? In other words, wouldn't high carbs imply high insulin dose and thus higher chance of hypoglycemia? Okay, so I assume this question is coming from a person living with type 1 diabetes. That's my assumption here. Mm-hmm. And this is where what we're doing here and what we're seeing and what happens in client after client after client is simply mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing in the sense that people start doubling, like quadrupling, like just eating dramatically more total carbohydrate and still seeing their total insulin dosages go down. We've seen this many, many times on people even following a ketogenic Bernstein style diet. We've seen that. And particularly the ratio adjusts. So one of the guidelines, if I'm remembering correctly, in Dr. Bernstein's book is to not take more than 7 units of fast-acting insulin per meal. And I can promise you that if you follow this approach, you maximize your insulin sensitivity, you will get all the energy you need, all the carbohydrate energy you need, and not need to inject more than 7 units per meal. So it just basically comes down to improving insulin sensitivity. I mean, again, Dr. Bernstein has published articles on his program, his results, and in the published paper, the 24-hour insulin sensitivity is 1-to-1. So on average, okay? So they're using, so if you follow the diet, like roughly 30 grams of carbohydrate, a lot of people following his program are still using roughly 30 units of insulin per day. And on our program, you're going to eat hundreds and hundreds of grams of carbohydrate and need less than 30 units a day in a majority of cases. And your insulin sensitivity is going to go to more like, on 24-hour ratio, I'm 22-to-1. Cyrus is even a little higher than that. And we have clients in our program who are even higher than that. So the change in insulin sensitivity is dramatic. So you think you're going to eat more high carbohydrate foods, you think you're going to need more insulin, and it's actually not what happens.
Yes. So here's another way to think about it. The Dr. Bernstein diet, which is effectively a ketogenic diet, teaches you to eat, to minimize your carbohydrate intake dramatically and to eat nothing more than about approximately 30 grams of carbohydrate per day. And the law of small numbers that you're referencing here says that if your carbohydrate intake is very small per meal, then your insulin use will also be very small. And that is a true statement if you are operating in a high-fat environment, okay? So the Bernstein approach is a high-fat environment. The ketogenic diet is a high-fat environment. So in that environment, when fat is the predominant macronutrient, then you have to eat small amounts of carbohydrate in order to use small amounts of insulin, because the high-fat environment is effectively blocking insulin from doing its job. So what we advocate is to not operate in a high-fat environment, because when you do, you have to keep your carbohydrate intake small. What we suggest instead is to take your total fat intake and make it much smaller. So now you're operating in a very low-fat environment. And as a result of operating in a low-fat environment, now your carbohydrate intake can go up. So what Dr. Bernstein would argue, and what many people in the world of low-carbohydrate nutrition would argue, is they would say, okay, well, if you're eating a meal that has 50 grams of carbohydrate or 100 grams or maybe 150 grams of carbohydrate in it, then we would expect that your insulin use would also be extremely high. But just like Robbie was saying, just because your carbohydrate intake goes up does not mean that your insulin use goes up dramatically, okay? So if you go from eating a meal that has 10 grams of carbohydrate to a meal that has 100 grams of carbohydrate, which is a 10-fold increase, you would predict that your insulin use would also be 10-fold higher. But in reality, your insulin use is not 10-fold higher. It is absolutely not 10-fold higher, because the Mastering Diabetes method allows you to gain tremendous amounts of insulin sensitivity. So we still, to be perfectly honest, we still play the law of small numbers. We really do. But our law of small numbers says you can get away with eating large amounts of carbohydrates still using a small amount of insulin. That's our law of small numbers that I literally just made up right now.
Yeah. Cyrus, I think this would be a good chance for us to decision tree inside our course here, that people can really understand how to like document these numbers and how it applies to even people who aren't living with insulin-dependent diabetes.
Yes. Okay. That's a great idea. So why don't we go to the next question? I'll come back and I'm going to pop open the decision tree so I can show you guys.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So guys, some of you might know this if you're checking our email list, but we've just recently launched a new DIY course. So for those of you who really want to do this, you want to get started, you just need instructions, you just need clear guidance. You don't need coaching right now. You don't need a community. You just want clear guidance. You're going to be told exactly what to do, step by step. We created that. So we sent out an email asking people, why a lot of people didn't join our coaching program in the past. And they said, it came down to finances. I want to join. I want to be a part of this, and it's just I can't afford that right now. So we understand that, and we then went to the drawing board. Like, hey, what can we do? How can we get this information to people who really want it? And we came up with this DIY program. And so it's an online course that is very clear, step by step, exactly what to do. And the decision tree is a huge part of that program. And it's the fourth tenet of the Mastering Diabetes method. And it truly will help you do it yourself. Like, if you follow the instructions, you fill out the decision trees, you're going to see it with your own eyes, like undebatable. Like this whole, what Cyrus just said, the law of small numbers in the Mastering Diabetes method, like you're going to see these insulin requirements change. You're going to see your ratios change, and how to know what to do at the next meal becomes very clear with this thing that we've created here, the DIY course and the decision tree.
Okay, so let me show you guys exactly how this decision tree works, because it's actually pretty cool. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, and Linda's asking, I hope this would be a low cost. So you're exactly right. The DIY course is a low cost, affordable program. So it's right now because we just announced it, we just created it, we just put it together. The cost of the course, it's $99 right now. That's a 33% saving off the full price. So basically you're saving $50. Or you can also make 3 payments of $39, which again is 33% savings off the full price of over $150 on the payment plan. So we've made it as affordable as we can.
So Robbie, can you see my screen right now?
I sure can. I see the curriculum for the do-it-yourself program.
Perfect. Okay, so let me kind of walk you guys through this whole process here. When you get into the do-it-yourself program, what you'll see here on the left-hand side is it says the do-it-yourself program. So that's how you know you're in the right place. And you can walk through the course here, where there's a whole collection of modules. There's module 1 that gives you access to 4 different videos. Then there's module 2, which gives you access to 9 other videos. Then there's module 3, module 4, module 5, module 6. So we're basically, think about this as it's like a step-by-step set of instructions that says first do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. Okay. So when you get access to this course, you'll have access to all of module 1 for about a week. And then after a week passes, you will then unlock the ability to go into module 2. And then after another week, you will then unlock the ability to go into module 3, and so on and so forth. So every 7 days, a new module will open. Now, in module 2, you see this thing here. It says the decision tree for non-insulin dependent diabetes and the decision tree for insulin dependent diabetes. So if I click into this lesson right here, okay, I have type 1 diabetes, I'm insulin dependent, so I want to understand how to use this decision tree, what's it going to do for me, and how can I make it work in order to actually control my blood glucose. So what you would do is you would just watch this video right here. So I'll click play, and then you get to see, Robbie and I talking about the decision tree right here. I'll just hit pause on this because it's being silly, but this video would pop up. Then you can read about the decision tree right here and exactly what the benefit of using the decision tree is. And then down here at the bottom, there's actually your PDF right here, the decision tree PDF. So you can download this PDF by clicking right here, and then you can print it out on your computer, and then you can start to use these on a daily basis in order to actually control your blood glucose with
on the carbohydrate and fat content in grams to understand
how cute. Robbie's what a stud. Okay, so my internet's being slow right now for some reason, but this is about to pop up, so bear with me for 1 second here.
And exercise are affecting your blood glucose.
All right.
I just want to tell everybody so badly, Cyrus. I just keep on talking. I really want them to know the information.
Okay, so this PDF shows up right here, and then you can download this to your computer, and then you can go through this decision tree PDF, and you can learn exactly how to use it. So we kind of show you a step-by-step, like a sample of this is how you would actually use the decision tree to your advantage. And then we give you this template right here, this insulin-dependent 24-hour decision tree. You can then take this and print this out, and then you can start to use this every single day to get your blood glucose under really, really good control. Now, the reason we're talking about this is, again, because the law of small numbers. What you are likely to find is over the course of time, this column D right here, this carbohydrate intake is going to probably go up big time. So in the Bernstein approach, you eat 30 grams of carbohydrate for the day. In this example, this person is eating 320 grams of carbohydrate for the day. I eat 600. Robbie eats 700 grams of carbohydrate per day, okay, which is more than most people living with diabetes would eat in a week or even a month, okay? So this column is likely to increase in numbers, but this injected insulin ratio, column right here, G, is not going to go up by very much. So you would think, if I'm eating hundreds of grams of carbohydrate, then I'm going to need hundreds of units of insulin. But in reality, this number doesn't actually go up by very much. And in most situations, you can eat more carbohydrate for less insulin. That's something that happens over and over and over again. And that's one of the ways that you're gaining insulin sensitivity. So this right here is just an example of one lesson in this course. If you went back to the table of contents, you can then scroll through and take a look at another. Let's say we wanted to look at this one about all fat is not created equal here. So just to show you guys one more lesson, again, there's a video at the very top, and then underneath it there's sort of a text description of exactly what's happening that teaches you the difference between trans fatty acids and saturated fatty acids and unsaturated fatty acids, and what you can do in order to actually move your diet in the right direction so that you're increasing your insulin sensitivity. So this is just kind of a quick run through of what this course looks like. And if you want to get involved, this is the first time that we've ever been able to offer this course to our audience. And we're very excited about it just because we know that we want to be able to provide the Mastering Diabetes method without having it have a large price tag. It's very important to us. So this is the way you do that.
Yeah, and Linda asked, how long do you have access? So you get access to it for life. Once you bought the DIY course, that's yours to refer to at any point that you need to. And again, we're very, very adamant about people following this in a step-by-step manner. So you log in, you get week 1, boom, you focus on that for the week. And then you wait 7 days to get to the next part. And that's how it works. And then you keep it forever once you've gone through all the modules.
Okay, Robbie, do you want to start calling people? We got a couple of
phone calls. Yes, and I love all the questions coming. You guys are great. You're asking great stuff. Hopefully, some of these questions they're duplicate. So when we answer somebody else's, we answer yours. So
okay, at the bottom of the questions thing, you'll see there's 3 phone numbers. Do you see those?
Yep. Okay, so here we go.
Got one of those. In the meantime, let me just answer a question here. Ken says, "What do you recommend eating for the evening meal?" Ken, the answer to that is it's in the Mastering Diabetes, it's in the do-it-yourself course. Just to let you, quick snippet here, we recommend eating a meal that's got a lot of non-starchy vegetables in it. We want you to keep your carbohydrate intake lower in the evening hours because it keeps your blood glucose nice and flat throughout the night. We suggest eating higher carbohydrate meals for breakfast and for lunch, lower carbohydrate meals for dinner. That includes salads, that includes non-starchy vegetables, that includes legumes, beans, lentils, et cetera, et cetera. It's in the course, and hopefully you'll find it right in there. Okay, Robbie, you calling someone?
Okay, Cyrus, we have Linda on the line.
Yeah.
Cyrus, can you hear Linda?
We got you, Linda. How you doing?
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
We got you.
How you doing?
Okay.
Do you have a question for us?
We got you, Linda. How you doing?
Go ahead and turn the volume down on your computer because there's going to be a little bit of a delay, and then we'll hear it here.
Okay, I did.
Perfect. All right, how can we help today?
Well, I have done the program. I was in it for about 6 months, and I did it real well, I believe. I kept my fat to 10 to 20%. 10 to 15%, as you said.
Good.
And then I did leave the program because my blood sugar and all was not doing good. The lipids were high. My cholesterol was scary. And so I said, well, I guess I need to try something else. But I have been whole food plant-based 7 years. I was with SOS before with Chef AJ. So I kind of know what to eat. It just seems like Cyrus might have already answered my question when he mentioned the lady with high cholesterol, because that's what mine is. Mine showed 200, and I really thought it would go down. It's very discouraging when it doesn't, because you're doing everything right? So, with the fatty, what do you call it? You call it the fatty liver, fatty insulin-resistant liver. And you said to take the minimum, lower my reduce the potato and fruit cholesterol. Total or just at night?
Are you currently, do you have any weight to lose right now? Are you overweight?
No, I don't. And even as the weight came off, I would think it would go down, but it never did go down.
Okay, so you
So I've lost a lot of weight.
Okay, so you've reached your ideal weight now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm 116.53.
Okay. And have you had a C-peptide test or fasting insulin test?
Yes, and when I was in the program, I did send that in, and Kylie did remark that it sounded like that it was in the frame, the time frame of what it should be. So.
Do you remember what the results are?
No, and I've moved, and I can't find the folder right now, but it's probably in, if y'all keep the master of all the comments, you might can search for it and find it there. I did post it, but that's been a year and a half ago, probably.
Got it.
But it was in range. It was not too low, and it was, it was good. I was shocked when I saw it, and she showed me how to read it,
Okay, good. And what was your last A1C?
My last A1C was 7, and it was 7 before I started the program, and it was 7 throughout it. It just stayed a steady 7. So it never did increase, so I was very glad about that. I can't imagine why it would, other than, there's something internal going on that I'm unaware of, and, just a regular, blood work would not show, And I am a cardiovascular, I have heart disease.
Okay.
I don't know if that, like you said, that might play a part in it too. But I know of other people that all of that has changed when they were in all of these, Esselstyn and, Furman, all these that you hear of, great reviews, and then people say, well, why aren't you? I'm like, I'm asking for help. Don't ask about why about me. I don't know, and I'm pretty active. I walk about 90 minutes a day, and I do little gardening things and things that are, just get my muscles strong. And I do a little bit of exercise. So, but I know we could all be, I feel like I could be more energetic, but with my age, I think I'm doing pretty good, and my weight is good, and I feel really good. It's just depressing to have the numbers stink,
Okay, so Linda, let me interject here. Here's what I would recommend. I would recommend getting your C-peptide retested, and the reason I say that is because
you're cutting out, Sarah.
Can you put me next to the speaker, Robert? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I can hear you much better.
Okay, so what I would recommend is go get your C-peptide value retested. The reason I say that is because your C-peptide value can change, and it can change pretty dramatically depending on your lifestyle and depending on whether you have an autoimmune version of diabetes. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the last time you got your C-peptide value tested, it was a 3.0, which is generally speaking a moderately high C-peptide value. If you went and got your C-peptide tested now, there's no guarantee.
I think mine was a 1.9.
It was a what?
She said 1.9.
Really not good with remembering, and that was a while back. Sorry.
Okay, so a 1.9 is starting to get a little bit questionable, to be perfectly honest. And because the reason I say that is because a 1.9 basically indicates that you have your pancreas has reduced insulin secretory capacity. So if you go get your C-peptide tested again, it'll give you more insight. If the number is less than 1.5, then we're in a situation where that is the answer, and the reason why your pancreas won't come down is because your pancreas is struggling big time. If you answer and you come back If you go get it tested and you come back with a C-peptide of 2.5, then that's not the answer. Then the answer is there's something more sophisticated happening with your diet and your lifestyle, and we're going to have to drill in for more details. So if you can get that taken and then report the results back to us, that would be super helpful, because we want to be able to help you troubleshoot this. But, without that value, we're sort of shooting in the dark.
I see. I totally get that. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. So report back to us, all right?
Okay, I will. Thank y'all.
Okay, have a good
I
night.
appreciate this tonight.
You
All right,
got
you
it.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so while you dial up the next phone number, I'm going to answer another question, which is, can you explain type 1.5 diabetes? Okay, here's type 1.5 diabetes in a nutshell. Type 1.5 diabetes is a slow progressing adult onset version of type 1 diabetes. So what that means is that, number one, it is autoimmune. You have an autoimmune reaction that is destroying the beta cells in your pancreas. That's number one. Number two, people with type 1.5 diabetes are generally over the age of 30 years old. Number three, people who are diagnosed with type 1.5 diabetes generally only express one antibody to their beta cells. So people who have type 1 diabetes and generally express multiple antibodies, and as a result of that, they go from not needing insulin to needing insulin extremely quickly. People with type 1.5 diabetes, because they have a weaker, slower progressing autoimmune version of diabetes, end up needing insulin gradually over the course of sometimes 3 to 5 to 10 years. So just think about it as adult onset, slow progressing version of type 1 diabetes, and that should hopefully clear things up in your mind. Go for it,
Perfect.
Ryan.
Okay, we got Jag on the phone. Can you hear us?
Gotcha.
I can.
All right. What do you got for your question?
Hi, Robbie. Thank you for taking the call or calling me. And thank you for taking the question. The question is, so if I were to ask, what would you say are some key insights that you guys have had in diabetes and diet? I guess one of the ones is, the relationship between fat and insulin sensitivity. Are there others? I know you mentioned whole foods and plant-based food. Is there something specific there that, you kind of have honed into? Is there a key takeaway there in terms of why is that better for diabetes? Thanks.
Yeah, so I think he's asking, what other things than just fat affect insulin sensitivity and diabetes?
100%. Okay, so let me answer this question here. Jack, can you hear me? You want to put the phone closer, Robbie?
I can. Thank you.
Okay. So Jag, this is a great question. So yes, the fact that increasing your fat intake squashes your insulin sensitivity, that's huge insight number one. Let's be very honest and very clear. When we refer to the total amount of fat that you're eating, we're mainly referring to saturated fat. Okay, so eating a diet that is high in saturated fat is the most problematic. Eating a diet that is higher in unsaturated fat is much, much less problematic. So that's actually a huge insight unto itself. Number three, when it comes to protein, eating diets that are high in animal-based protein can cause extensive damage to your kidney, and it can also elevate your blood glucose values and make it very challenging to control your blood glucose. When your protein comes mainly from animal-based sources, that problem doesn't happen. So we're talking about the type of fat and the amount of fat. We're talking about the type of protein and the amount of protein. And then when it comes to carbohydrate, we're also talking about the type of carbohydrate and the amount of carbohydrate. Okay? The type of carbohydrate that we recommend eating is unprocessed whole carbohydrate. It comes from natural sources. That version of carbohydrate behaves completely differently than the refined version of carbohydrate that you get from packaged and processed products in the grocery store. So people in the low carbohydrate world love to point a finger at carbohydrates. They say carbohydrates are bad for you. Carbohydrates are going to make you fat. You see this in the research all over the place. Low carb diets are better than low fat diets. But what these people don't do is they don't differentiate between what type of carbohydrate they're talking about. Okay? Nobody's going to disagree that refined carbohydrates are actually very problematic. I'm not going to disagree Dr. Bernstein's not going to disagree with that. People in the paleo world are not going to disagree with that. We are advocating that you eat more whole carbohydrates, and evidence shows, research shows, that when you eat more whole carbohydrates, that your insulin needs do not increase. In fact, they actually sometimes decrease. And as a result of that, you can gain tremendous amounts of insulin sensitivity and completely reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes altogether.
Cyrus and Robbie, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling, Jake. Have a good one.
And look forward to the course. Thank you so much.
Okay, you got it. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
All right. I know Kylie is answering questions and giving people direct links, but somebody asked, where do you get a C-peptide test? You can order a C-peptide test online. It's quite inexpensive. You don't need a doctor's prescription. Go to requestatest.com. You can also just go to our website, actually. Go to our website. We have an entire blog post. And at the bottom, we list places where you can go to order a C-peptide test. So just Google Mastering Diabetes C-peptide test, and you will get that information.
All right, Robbie, how about you make another phone call here? The 757 number, you see that one?
You got it. That's next.
Okay, cool. In the meantime, Avonley, that's a great name. Avonley says, have either of you fasted for an extended period of time? And if so, what were your experiences? Okay, here's the answer to that. No. And the reason for that is because Robbie and I both live with type 1 diabetes. Fasting for an extended period of time, living with type 1 diabetes, is extremely dangerous. When I say it's extremely dangerous, it's life-threatening. There have been people who have been living with type 1 diabetes that attempt to fast for anything beyond 3, 4, 5 days, and they can easily go into a state called diabetic ketoacidosis, which becomes extremely dangerous. There have been some people with type 1 diabetes who have actually died as a result of attempting to fast for long periods of time. So unfortunately, neither one of us can experience an extended fast without it being too dangerous. However, there are many people who have been living with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes in our program that have done extended water fasts and have come back with incredible things to say about it. To paraphrase the experience that I've heard from these people, number one, you think you're going to be a lot hungrier than you really are. Okay? Going into it, you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to eat for 7 days or 14 days or 28 days. But in reality, after 1 or 2 days, your appetite, boom, gone. It just literally vaporizes because your brain has a self-protective mechanism that shuts off your appetite in order to prevent you from becoming too ravenous. Number two, people actually, not only do they not feel bad when fasting, most people feel much better when fasting. When I say much better, I mean they go to the bathroom more frequently, they're better hydrated, they have less headaches, and they actually have more energy. And this is, we've heard this over and over and over and over again. A lot of people report back to us that they stop caring about food and they don't even really think about it. And then when they go back to eating food, it's actually a little bit challenging because all of a sudden you have this psychological association with the food you're eating and how much, when, and that's the challenging part. So if you're considering doing an extended fast, depending on the type of diabetes you're living with, depending on your particular situation, it could be a good idea. But again, if you're living with insulin-dependent diabetes, I'm going to dissuade you significantly from doing it because it is way too dangerous.
100%. Okay, we have Aisha on the phone. Can you hear us?
I can.
All right.
What's up? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. How can we help you?
So I am one of the people who is not a diabetic. I have Hashimoto's, and I know Cyrus has Hashimoto's. So I was diagnosed a little over a year ago, and I've been reaching out left and right to so-called experts. And so far, I've been told that I can, I guess the remission isn't the word I'm looking for, but control it with a plant-based diet. I have been told that I have to have animal products in my diet. And I find that kind of hard to believe since, people are healing diabetes and heart disease and all that stuff. And so really just wanting to find out if your program will help with that. And just a little FYI, I was I was told I have Hashimoto's, but not bad enough to be on medication. So that just blew my mind also. Like, what am I supposed to do with all the symptoms I have if I don't have medication? So just trying to find out if your program will help that.
Okay. This is phenomenal. Okay, let me ask you this: when you were diagnosed with Hashimoto's, did your doctors measure your TSH level, and if so, what was it?
They did, and I knew I should have pulled up all my stuff because I don't remember my numbers.
Mm-hmm.
First, even before that, I was diagnosed with hypothyroid. They said my numbers got all better, and then months later, then I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's because none of my symptoms went away.
Okay, and your symptoms, let me guess: low energy, weight gain, lack of appetite.
Yeah, the anxiety, the palpitations were the worst. I'm a runner, and I had to stop running because I can't, it was like I was having a heart attack. I actually went to the emergency room a couple of times thinking I was having a heart attack. So. Okay.
And is that still happening to you?
Weight gain is horrible. It's like 50 pounds of weight gain, and that's a lot.
Okay, so in order to talk Hashimoto's hypothyroidism effectively and constructively, you have to know your numbers. And I'm not trying to lecture you by any stretch of the imagination, but do your best to go get your numbers. When I say get your numbers, I want to know what your TSH level is primarily, but then also in addition to that, your T4 value is actually quite helpful. Now, just to give you kind of a quick rundown of what these numbers mean. Your TSH is basically released by your pituitary gland. So it's a little tiny pea-sized portion of your brain that sends out this thing called TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. And that TSH goes to your thyroid gland and it says, hey, thyroid gland, make thyroid hormone. And it goes, knock, knock, make some thyroid hormone. And then what's supposed to happen is your thyroid gland is supposed to say, oh, thanks, TSH. I will now make some T4. And then it creates T4 and it puts the T4 into your blood. So TSH starts here, TSH ends here. T4 starts in your thyroid gland and then it ends in tissues all around your body. Now, in this situation of Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, what ends up happening is that you end up developing antibodies to your thyroid gland. So for some reason, you contracted a virus. Maybe you had a whole bunch of processed food at some point. Nobody really knows the answer. It could be you developed a gluten intolerance and there's cross-reactivity with your thyroid gland. But the idea here is that your thyroid gland starts to become less active. So the pea-sized portion of your brain that secretes TSH now has to shout louder. So it has to manufacture more TSH, and that extra TSH is then going down to your thyroid gland to say, hey, make more T4. So all of a sudden, the volume of TSH starts to go up and up and up and up and up, okay? Meaning that there's more TSH inside of your blood. So what doctors do is you go to the hospital, or you go to the doctor's office, and they say, oh, let's measure your TSH level to try and figure out how loud is your pituitary gland shouting at your thyroid gland. So under normal circumstances, your TSH level should be between 1 and 2. That's the number you're looking for, okay? Now, in an individual with Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, that number could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 37, it could be 60, okay? So what I want to know from you is how high is your TSH level? Because if you came back to me and you said, oh, my TSH level is a 2.5 and I'm not taking any medication, I would say, okay, great. That's actually a pretty manageable number. With a TSH level of 2.5, if you adopt a low-fat, plant-based, unprocessed, 100% unprocessed diet, you stand a very good chance of moving that TSH needle back down towards 1 or 2, okay? But if you came back to me and you said, hey, Cyrus, my TSH level is a 15, I would say, okay, you can certainly adopt a whole food plant-based diet and you can probably see some improvement in your thyroid health, but I don't want to mislead you into thinking that just your diet by itself is going to solve this problem, because it's probably not. So if you've gained, it surprises me that your doctor would allow you to gain 50 pounds without any medication. If I were your doctor, I would have stopped that process very quickly after maybe 5 pounds of weight loss. And I would have said, all right, we got to put you on a little bit of thyroid hormone, because if we don't, you're going to continue to gain weight over the course of time. Okay. So right now you're in a situation where you're 50 pounds overweight and you want to control your blood glucose. I'm sorry. You want to improve your overall health and feel less heart palpitations and feel more like a normal human being. From what I'm hearing from you, the answer is likely going to be a combination of two things. Number one, getting thyroid hormone into your blood. It is absolutely critical to get thyroid hormone into your blood. Number two, to also adopt a low-fat plant-based whole food diet, because adopting a low-fat plant-based whole food diet is going to improve the overall functionality of your existing thyroid gland, and it's going to prevent your thyroid gland from getting any worse. And the last thing that I will say is that people who advocate that you have to eat meat in order to heal your thyroid gland, I say prove it to me. I've seen this over and over again on the internet, and people are constantly saying, oh, you got to eat a paleo diet, it has to be gluten-free. And I think there's a little bit of validity to it, but I will strongly argue against this notion that you have to eat animal foods in order to heal your thyroid gland, or in order to improve the health of your thyroid gland. I haven't seen it before, and I'm calling, I want to see the evidence before I can even, what's the word I'm looking for? Before I'm willing to even listen to that point of view. That's all.
Okay.
I
wish I would have had that number.
Yeah. So go get that number, report that number back to us. I want to know. But to answer your question, your answer is, can you guys help me? Can the low-fat plant-based whole food diet help me? The answer is yes. The answer is it can always help, because I don't know how processed your diet is right now. I don't know how high fat it is. I don't know how animal heavy it is. But point being is that when you transition to a low-fat plant-based whole food diet and your diet becomes cleaner and cleaner and cleaner and less processed, what you're doing is you're giving your thyroid gland the best possible chance of improving its function. My thyroid hormone level, the amount that I had to take, was creeping up and 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 up. I adopted a low-fat plant-based whole food diet, and all of a sudden my thyroid hormone level plateaued, and then it started to go down and down and down and down and down. I have not reversed thyroid disease by any stretch of the imagination. I don't even know if I can. But the fact of the matter is, it's not continuing to go up, and I am stable in my thyroid hormone levels, and I've been that way for like 8 years now. And that's something that most people with Hashimoto's can't say, because their diet and their lifestyle forces them to have to need more medication over the course of time.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
For sure. You bring up a good question. So go get that result and email it to us so that we can see what the number is and see if we can help you.
Okay, great. I will. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, Cyrus, there's so many great questions coming in. So many great questions. Honestly, we're probably not going to answer all of them, but I will say part of the reason we created this DIY course is so people can have access to these common questions, which a lot of them we've answered and explained even in further detail in the online course. So we want you guys to take advantage of that, take advantage of this introductory pricing. It's not going to last for long. So you'll see on your screen here, you can just click a button and you can go check it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So go take a look at the introductory program. Go take a look at the DIY program and see this introductory pricing that we're giving right now. The reason we say this is because a lot of the times, I remember when I was first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I had, constructively 500 questions about, every possible scenario. Well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And what if I'm hypoglycemic and then I begin exercising? What if I'm fasting and then I go hypoglycemic? What if I eat too many grams of carbohydrate and then I have to correct? And it's just so many questions, right? It wasn't until I put the diet or the lifestyle into play in my life that all of a sudden, all of this cloud of confusion in my head started to become crystal clear. Okay, and I put a lot of effort into it because that's the kind of person I am. But the idea here is that all of these intellectual questions started to become much quieter because every single day I was living a low-fat, plant-based, whole food lifestyle, and as a result of that, my experience ended up teaching me way more than I could have ever read in a book or seen on YouTube. So if you're in a position where you're saying, you know what, I'm a little frustrated with my health, I want to solve any number of problems, I really want to get my blood glucose under control, I want to feel more energy, I want to lose weight, okay? The Mastering Diabetes method is a very, very good solution to that problem. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that it's the solution to every single problem you've ever had with your health. But I will tell you that it's the most powerful solution to metabolic health that the world has ever seen. And I am not exaggerating when I say that. It is the single most powerful medication ever created. And it is the gift that keeps on giving. So if you have a bunch of questions and you're maybe nervous and you're sort of apprehensive about getting involved, my recommendation to you is just do it. Just put all that away, put all the fear away, put all the questions away. Just do it. Commit to it. Do it exactly the way that we described in the course, literally step by step, and just watch. Just willing suspension of disbelief. Put it away, and just watch what happens, and see as your blood glucose improves and your insulin use goes down and your energy levels go up and your oral medication use goes down.
100%.
For whatever reason, just let us know. We'll give you a refund within the first 30 days if you do exactly what we say. It's that simple. There's literally no risk. Okay?
Yes, like we have an action takers guarantee, just like Cyrus said, and somebody in the chat box is asking, do you have to like pay, is there like another fee for it each year or something? It's like, no. So our coaching program has a wait list. That is a, recurring system where people stay in the program to get support from our coaches and community on an ongoing basis. Yes, that has a wait list. You can't join that right now. The DIY program it's a single payment and you have access for life, lifetime access. It's $99 when you pay the single payment. If you want to make it in 3 payments, it's $39 right now. This is the cheapest it'll ever be. We have a 33% discount when launching this. So you're saving about $50 for getting in on the initial launch of the program. So I just want to read a testimonial that came in here, Cyrus. This woman, Nancy, says, I suffered the results of a low-carb, high-fat diet and salad every day. In time, my cholesterol went high, my energy dropped, had my gallbladder removed. Not sure if this was a result of my eating, but 2 years ago, I ended up in the hospital with blood sugar in the 700s and ketoacidosis, in ICU for 3 days, found my pancreas just stopped producing insulin, and I had a tumor in my pancreas. Found your program last year. She feels alive again at 78. Cholesterol is down. Inflammation is down. I have lost 50 pounds. I actually think I saved my life by ending up in the hospital and later finding your program. The hospital, 2 of them said to keep eating the low-carb keto. So thankful I found you guys. God bless you all, and thank you for the work you do to help others. There's an example. It works.
That's phenomenal. That's a great. I'm glad you read that.
Congrats, Nancy. I mean, you did the work, so pat yourself on the back.
100%. I love to hear stories like that because it's like, you end up digging a deeper and deeper and deeper hole, feeling like, there's no way to get out of this. And all of a sudden, all you do is make a simple change. Simple, not complicated. It's not an easy change, but it's a straightforward change. And then all of a sudden, boom, now your life unfolds in ways that you never even could predict.
Absolutely.
Kurt asked a question. He says, can you get answers to questions when you take the course? So Kurt, great question. The answer is no, not in this course. The do-it-yourself program is literally just an online course. But again, it's the step-by-step method that thousands of people have already put into use, and it's made a dramatic difference in their life. If you want to join a community, if you want to get interaction with our team of coaches on a daily basis, to do that, you got to join the next level up. And the next level up after that is called the Mastering Diabetes program. It's called the Signature Program. And that program is what Robbie was saying. That's the waiting list. So you got to put yourself on the waiting list. And then within usually somewhere around 30 days, maybe it might take a little bit longer depending on when somebody leaves the program, you then get an invitation to join, at which point you can join that program and then you can get guidance plus the online course and make your life a lot simpler. So if that's what you're looking for, then I highly recommend going to the next level up. But if you just want the instruction manual that tells you exactly what to do and is likely to solve 80+% of all your problems, then the do-it-yourself course is the way to do it.
We got a nice testimonial in the chat box here. She said, I love the fact that you guys created the DIY program. I couldn't afford the coaching program, but I could afford this. Signed up a few days ago, and I love it. Great to hear that. It's really great to hear.
Cool.
Yeah.
Really glad to hear that. Okay, and then Terry says, how much is the mastering program? Okay, so the do-it-yourself course is normally $149 right now, on sale for $99. The Mastering Diabetes signature coaching program that I just described, that has access to coaches and has a community, that costs $399 for the year. Excuse me, I lied. That is a $399 program for 3 months. Okay, so it's a little bit more of a financial investment, but trust me when I say getting access to the community, getting access to our coaching staff is truly, truly, truly very valuable. So if you are interested in doing that, it's $399 for the first 3 months, and then it's actually $99 a month after that.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see here. We have a couple of good questions coming in. Cyrus, should we do another? Want to do another phone call?
Yeah, let's do it. I like the phone call.
And I know Kylie's been answering a lot of questions in the chat box, so we're here to help, guys. You got a great team. You got a registered nurse, master's in nursing, Kylie Buckner, over 20 years of experience answering your questions in the chat box. So if you're here, take advantage of this opportunity. While I dial somebody, Cyrus, can you quickly explain type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's?
For sure. Okay, so type 3 diabetes think of type 3 diabetes as basically insulin resistance of your brain. Now, insulin resistance can affect many tissues. It can affect your muscle and liver primarily. It can also affect your pancreas, and researchers are now finding that it can affect your brain. When insulin resistance affects your brain, the results, your brain is slightly different than your liver and muscle. Okay? And the reason for that is because your brain can really only operate on glucose versus your liver and muscle, who can operate on multiple fuels. But point being is that when your brain becomes insulin resistant, the results can be disastrous, because in the long term, it increases your risk for what's called cognitive decline. Cognitive decline is basically a fancy scientific way of referring to the reduction in neurological activity that happens over the course of time. You can lose spatial awareness, you can lose memory, you can lose motor function, and all of those can be grouped into this thing called cognitive decline. And what researchers are now finding is that people who have insulin resistance of their brain end up at a very high risk for Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Okay, so Alzheimer's disease is a very, 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 very debilitating condition. And if you ever know somebody who has been affected by Alzheimer's disease, you will know what I'm talking about. Scientists used to believe that there was no solution to Alzheimer's disease, because for the longest time they were treating people with drugs, and the drugs weren't doing anything. But it turns out that modern science has actually found that treating people with a diet that insulin sensitizes their muscle and liver also sensitizes their brain, and as a result of that, they can not only slow cognitive decline, but they can also regain neurological function. So type 3 diabetes is not something to play around with. You can't feel it right here and right now, but you'll feel it 20 years down the road. And that's one of the reasons why Robbie and I like to take a preventative measure and teach people how to adopt the most insulin-sensitive diet they can now. And as a result of that, you can stave off, if not completely eliminate, your risk for Alzheimer's down the road.
There you have it. Okay, we have Yelena on the phone. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. So the question is that my daughter is 14 and a half. She was diagnosed 2 years ago, and she's still honeymooning. And I think that the reason why her honeymoon is so prolonged is just because we are a whole food plant-based family. We dropped animal products right away once she got diagnosed, and I think that it's helping a lot. And she is a big fan of Robbie, and she loves fruit, and her dream is to become a fruitarian. And we are very cautious about it because we kind of think that it's, again, like everyone else, that the more carbs you eat, the harder for the pancreas to maintain the remaining bank of the beta cells. So our question is, from your experience, if she does go for the much higher number of carbs per meal, let's say, and we usually, when she eats a higher fruit meal, usually we give less insulin and she goes to the gym right away. And that's what helps her to kind of keep the blood level fine after eating, let's say, 80 carbs per meal by eating mangoes, pineapple, and I don't know, a peach. So the main question for us is, if we move towards that direction, will it kill the remaining of the beta cells faster, or these two things are not kind of, one doesn't lead to the other?
Okay, so one thing I want to just answer real quick, and I'll let Cyrus chime in here as well, of course. But I personally don't follow a fruitarian diet. I eat tons of greens and tons of non-starchy vegetables, and those are super, super important for overall health in general, and especially for anybody living with type 1 diabetes who wants to have...
No, Robbie, I'm truly sorry to interrupt you. I didn't mean fruitarian. I know we follow you very closely.
Okay,
I know the greens are, but I mean that you eat a lot of fruits.
So the bottom line is, what is she eating right now? Like, if she doesn't have a lot of fruit at a meal, where's she getting her energy or like calories from?
She's getting her calories from things like peppers, carrots, chia seeds, flax seeds, greens, but she remains. I cook them slightly; they're not raw. She eats them, but she hates them.
Yeah.
She doesn't like. At 14 years old, of course, you prefer a mango versus spinach.
Yeah. So, in this case, I think you obviously want to make sure she's maintaining her weight, she's active, she's getting enough energy, she's happy. The short answer is that no, eating more fruit is not going to limit the honeymoon phase. Like, that's like compared to whether she ate beans or whether she ate, potatoes or brown rice or quinoa or whatnot. They're going to be all relatively the same thing here. So really, the mastering diabetes method and the green light foods, they're all going to be very, very similar effect here.
So you think that if she moves to eating like more fruits per meal, and we will cover for it between insulin and exercise, it should not decrease the function, and it will not finish the honeymoon faster than it goes by itself if we limit the carbs and she eats less of the tropical foods which are higher in carbs.
Yeah, honestly, this is a very, very nuanced question, and I can't give you like an exact detailed answer. Theoretically, I don't know if somebody you're avoiding all carbohydrate-rich food right now. You're limiting it, so it's not really about the fruit here. It's about the fact that you're just trying to eat lots and lots of lower carbohydrate plant foods.
Lower, yes. So you're trying to manage it like 30, 40 grams per meal.
Yeah. So, again, I guess it comes down to like, is that sustainable for her? Is she going to be, growing at 14? Does she still has growing to do? Like, I believe that, eating carbohydrate-rich foods are going to be actually important for that. Like, exactly how it impacts the honeymoon phase is just, nobody can really give you an exact answer on that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when has her, I don't know what, do you know what her C-peptide is?
Yes. The last one, unfortunately, it was 0.7. And 3 months prior to that, it was 1.7. So it's kind of declined. We see by the numbers. We see by the numbers that she is declining. It's apparent. But we are just, we are so treasuring it that we don't know what that she just thinks that it doesn't matter at this point, and why can't she have a little more if she can like exercise? She's willing to exercise hard, and she's going to the gym. She's very active. She's very sporty, and she understands the disease very well. She's very responsible.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
like she's like I said.
yeah, I mean, I've thought about this issue a lot, like personally, because it's something that people talk about a lot, especially in the low carb world. Oh, like preserving the honeymoon phase and whatnot. And I kind of get where they're coming from, because like, oh, maybe it's a little bit easier to manage type 1 diabetes when you're still producing a little bit of your own insulin, and it's kind of true. But at the end of the day, to a certain extent, it doesn't really matter that much. Like, we don't have a solution here. Unfortunately, as you can see, the insulin production is declining. I personally, if I was in this situation,
declining.
Yeah, if I was in this situation, my focus is on what can I do to develop lifestyle habits that are going to lead to my optimal health in the short term and the long term, and be able to be active and happy and healthy. And excluding carbohydrate-rich foods, we do not believe is a good solution for that.
Robbie, but can you please kindly one more, if it's possible for you to give us an advice? We cannot exactly understand, because let's say now she usually is like between 2.5 and 3.5 per meal units of the insulin.
Mm-hmm.
When you get like a high carb fruit meal like mangoes, pineapple, and whatever, and it's 100, we don't know exactly how to calculate it, because we are afraid for her to go low.
Okay.
And how do you? I mean, you're an expert in
For
it.
sure.
So what is the right way to start?
That's exactly why we created the decision tree. So the Mastering Diabetes method, there's 4 components: low-fat, plant-based, whole food nutrition, intermittent fasting, daily movement, and decision trees. Those are the 4 components of the Mastering Diabetes method. And when she starts to fill those out and follow the instructions, like Cyrus showed in the course earlier, then you get to become the master of what is going on through objective information. And the decision tree guides you in what to do at the next meal, what to do the next day. So based on what happened at lunch this day, and then you follow the decision tree, you fill in the information, then you have guidance on what to do the next day. Based on objective information, like that you are like making those decisions, she's making those decisions in an empowered way, not because somebody's telling her to do this or do that. We don't practice medicine. We don't change medications. We teach people living with all forms of diabetes, but especially insulin dependent, how to make really logical, objective decisions for insulin dosing. They learn that on their own.
Thank you so much. But is it okay to ask you, for example, like you eat very similarly and you know yourself very well, you deal with it for years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever experience that you do the very same thing, like you eat the same meal and you give the same amount of insulin, and let's say you go higher than usually or you drop lower than you don't expect? Is it because like when you read forums, that's what people say about type 1, that most of the time it's unpredictable. Does it happen to you as well?
Yeah, so people in the forums in the diabetes community are saying it's unpredictable because they're not following a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet, because they're not consistent with their diet, because it's not consistently low-fat. So of course, yes, nobody is perfect with type 1 diabetes. Not Cyrus isn't perfect. I'm not perfect. You can't be perfect with type 1. Sometimes you're going to dose, you're going to think it's going to go perfect, and it doesn't. And especially for a 14-year-old girl, like there's hormones involved, there's the menstrual cycle, like that's going to also make things a little more challenging. But again, consistent decision trees is going to help address those challenges. And it's okay to go a little higher, go a little low here and there. But what I will promise you is that when you're doing the Mastering Diabetes method, the misses are far less frequent and far less dramatic. You don't go to 300. You don't go to like 250. You don't have these brutal lows that just like take you out and like make you feel terrible for the rest of the day. You can really have true control of your blood glucose and make minor mistakes.
But once you start, is it usually, I understand it's different for different people, it varies, but is it usually within like 2 to 4 weeks, you definitely see the better results and you know how to deal with it better and you get the grip of it? Is it usually that time frame, that couple of weeks definitely give you an understanding understanding what's going on?
Yeah, diligent, consistently following the diet. That is true. Depends on how quickly somebody transitions. You know, a lot of people listening on this webinar, we're recommending changing one meal at a time. But if somebody changes all their meals, then, you know, you can be consistent and figure it out in a shorter period of time. But
So basically, your advice is to do it slowly, not to
that's ideal.
do it drastically.
Yeah. And just think about the long term. So it's not about like mastering as quickly as possible. It's about doing it as safely and sustainable as possible.
Got it, Robbie, but you don't eat cooked food, right? You're trying to eat as much as possible of the raw food, even if it's like greens and grains and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean that's a personal choice I make, but that's for everybody to make on their own. And like I said,
No, they're very similar, but
Yeah,
we're like adults and we don't have diabetes, we can sustain. But for her, and being the age, and like you said, hormonal plus type 1, it's not easy. She's trying very hard. It's like very few 14-year kids do that, and she understands. But she's still like a young person.
Yeah. Again, it's going to be a completely. I mean, we got to get going here because we have other people. But it's a complete personal decision. And again, through our program, we empower people with information and knowledge and resources, and so you can make the decisions that you want to make.
Thank you so much for doing it for the community, and thank you so much for picking me and calling
All right,
and
you
trying
got
to
it.
answer the questions to the best of your. Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Robbie. Stay well, guys, and thank you so much.
All right, have a
Thank
good.
you.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you again.
All right. Somebody's interested in the program but concerned about how to get enough calories on a whole food plant-based diet.
Yes, it's a great question. How do you get enough calories on a whole food plant-based diet? Okay, it's actually not that hard. I got a couple of strategies for you. Number one, try and eat higher on the calorie density scale. So, okay, when you're eating plant-based foods, it's easy to think, oh, I'm just going to eat a bunch of vegetables. So I'm going to eat cauliflower and broccoli and cucumbers and tomatoes. Those foods are extremely healthy, but they're very low in total calories. So what I would do is if I was trying to gain weight, and I've been in this situation before, is I try and minimize my intake of vegetables, and I try and increase my intake of, number one, fruits, number two, legumes, number three, what's what I'm looking for? Whole grains, okay? Those foods tend to be higher on the calorie density index, which means that every time you take a bite of those foods, you end up just taking on more calories. So if you're trying to gain weight and also control your blood glucose, then move towards more fruits, move towards more legumes, move towards more whole grains. It's a simple change you can make. If that still isn't working for you, the next thing I would do is add a fourth meal. What that means is I would eat breakfast, I would eat lunch, I would eat dinner, but then in between lunch and dinner, I would add another meal, and that other meal would be some kind of a snack. It could be a smoothie if you drink it slowly. It could be another calorie-dense serving at like 3 o'clock p.m., but the idea is to try and find a way to get a little bit more calories into you without going calorie negative for the day. So try doing one of those two or maybe both of those two tactics, and I think it can make a huge difference for you in a short period of time.
Perfect. Okay. I know Kylie's answering a lot of these questions in there. Let's see what else I got in the spreadsheet. Please address the dangerous combination of fatty liver and diabetes. People don't realize how dangerous these two conditions are. Please address how to treat them. How do you treat fatty liver disease, Cyrus?
Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to fatty liver disease, yes, fatty liver disease is a pain in the butt. Fatty liver disease is another way of saying a very insulin-resistant liver. So your liver progresses through multiple stages. It starts out being a normal, sort of functioning, healthy liver, and then it moves into insulin-resistant liver. And then from insulin-resistant liver, it becomes a fatty liver, and then from fatty liver, it becomes a cirrhotic liver. And then from cirrhotic liver, it becomes a necrotic liver, and then eventually it can become a fibrotic liver, and then it can actually die. Okay, so what you want to do is prevent your liver from going down the path of worse adjectives put in front of it. Okay, you don't want to go into cirrhosis, you don't want to go into fibrosis, you don't want to go into necrosis. None of those are good. What you want to do is try and arrest your liver if it's in the insulin resistant state and move it back to insulin sensitive. Your liver is the hardest working metabolic organ in your body. It does more work than your brain. It does more work than your heart. It does more work than your muscles. It's involved in every single metabolic reaction that you can possibly think of. And so when your liver function is compromised, many processes in your body can become complicated. Your cardiovascular health can become compromised. Your kidney health can become compromised. Your pancreatic health can become compromised. Your thyroid gland can suffer. So it's very important to make sure that you are eating a diet that's going to maximize the insulin sensitivity of your liver. And by doing so, you can not only prolong the life of your liver, but you can also prolong the life of other tissues in your body. How do you do it? Well, the way you do it is by treating your liver really well, is by eliminating, not just reducing, but eliminating packaged and processed foods. Zero, none, nothing that comes from a bottle, a package, a can, none of that. Okay, that is like napalm for your liver. Number one. And then number two is to try and significantly reduce, if not eliminate, all animal products from your diet. Animal products tend to be very pro-inflammatory. We've seen this 1,000 times over. People who eat them end up with fattier livers, and they end up with a higher risk for premature death. So if you can make those two simple changes, and you can really adopt the Mastering Diabetes method and drop your fat intake and eat as many plants as humanly possible, you're giving your liver the best possible chance of insulin sensitivity, in the same way that earlier we were talking about giving your thyroid gland the best possible chance of halting the progression towards medication. Okay? Eat as cleanly as possible and watch as your life completely changes in front of you.
Perfect. Okay. We got some more questions about the online course, the DIY program. Is it robust enough to follow without support? Exactly. It's designed, if you do it step by step, follow the instructions one step at a time, you will absolutely get results. No question about it. And we have an action taker's guarantee with it. So like Cyrus said, it's a no risk opportunity. So Cyrus, how about we answer one more question? What do you think?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so this is a good one. I know you love to answer this one. I have started following the whole food plant-based diet and have been seeing my blood sugar during the daytime going down. But unfortunately, my fasting blood sugar is still 140. Is there anything that I can do to lower morning fasting numbers?
Okay, so blood glucose in the middle of the day has gone down, but fasting blood glucose is still hovering around 140.
Yep.
Okay, so the answer is go get your C-peptide tested. Okay, that's the first thing that you can do. If you have a low C-peptide value, then what that can mean is that your fasting blood glucose can start to increase without you really wanting it to. Number two, again, let's go back to liver insulin resistance. When your liver is insulin resistant, it struggles in the middle of the night. It's competing against your pancreas is competing against your liver. Your liver is dropping glucose into your blood, and your pancreas is saying, hey man, I can't keep up with this. I can't keep up with this. In order to calm your liver down and to quiet it down so that it's secreting less glucose into your blood in the middle of the night, what you do is you improve your insulin sensitivity in your liver. So if you adopt a low-fat plant-based whole food diet and you really clean up your diet and try and eliminate your animal food intake, your liver will secrete less glucose into your blood in the middle of the night. And as a result of doing that, when you wake up in the morning, your blood glucose is going to be lower. Okay? It's very, very common in people who have an insulin-resistant / fatty liver. So it's a simple thing that you can do, but it has profound impacts. The second thing that I will say is that even if your fasting blood glucose is a little bit high, but the rest of the day your blood glucose is in range, then it's not actually that big of a problem, because the elevation in your blood glucose only happens for a very short period of time. Okay, what you're trying to eliminate is your blood glucose going up to 140 and then staying at 140 or staying at 150, 160 for a long period of time. If it's literally just going up a little bit and then coming right back down, then you're protected. But ultimately what you want to do is get your fasting blood glucose below 100. And the way to do that, again, is to make your liver the happiest machine in your entire body. When you do that, your fasting glucose will drop immediately.
Brilliant. Okay, I think we got pretty much all the questions. Well, there's one other one. When do you know when to stop taking medicine? So again, we teach you how to, work with your doctor, communicate with your doctor. You're gonna want to check with them. But one guideline is, and you're seeing your fasting blood glucose is less than 100 for 7 days in a row. That's a good sign that it's time to lower your medication and communicate with your doctor and see if they're on the same page with you. If not, it could be time to find a new doctor. A plant-based doctor would be beneficial.
100%.
This has been great, guys. I mean,
Having a good time.
Kylie's just been firing off all these answers. I mean, she's a machine.
Thanks, Robbie.
Yeah, it's fantastic. This is awesome to see so many of you guys here interested in this information and asking good questions. So thank you for coming.
100%. So, so thanks for coming to the webinar tonight. I mean, I know you guys put in a lot of effort to be here. There's still 210 of you guys here, which is unbelievable. And I know it's late in the evening. You guys probably have better things to do, but listen to Robbie and I talk. Here's the deal. As you guys continue to clean up your diet and eat the least refined packaged and processed diet with the small number of animal products in your diet, you will, without question, see improvements in your blood glucose. Even if you don't right off the bat, there are some simple tweaks that you can make to your diet to actually continue to improve your blood glucose and to drop your insulin and medication requirements. If you have any questions about any of this stuff that we didn't cover tonight, just write us an email at team@masteringdiabetes.org, and we will do our best to get back to you as quick as humanly possible. And again, if you're in a position where you feel like you want to actually put this into play in your life, try out the DIY program. Again, we have this thing called an Action Takers Guarantee, which basically means that there's zero risk. So if you purchase the program and you do the method exactly the way we described, you fill out 14 continuous days of decision trees in a lot of detail, and you prove to us that your blood glucose is not improving, send all of those decision trees our way, and we will give you a refund. Okay, we don't want you to have any stress about whether you're putting your credit card down and all of a sudden Cyrus and Robbie are stealing your money. That's not going to happen. Okay, if the reason we can give that guarantee is because we know how powerful this method is. And if you put this into play and you do it exactly the way that we describe in the course, literally to the T, you're going to get incredible results and you're not going to want a refund. Okay? I don't want you to want a refund because that doesn't feel good for you and it doesn't feel good for us. I want you to purchase this and I want you to love it. I want you to really take this to heart and I want it to work. Okay? So if you are nervous about this purchase, don't worry about it. We got your back, right? You just commit to doing it. That's all I want you to focus on. You just commit to doing that and watch as your life unfolds in front of you. And if for whatever reason it doesn't, just let us know and we're here for you. All right? It's that simple. Uh-oh, Robbie cut out.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I turned my mic off because there's a guy weed whacking outside.
Oh, okay. Now we're back.
I'm back. I just want to second everything Cyrus said. I can't say it better myself, but it works. We guarantee it. So we hope to see you on the inside.
All right, guys. Have a great night, and we will catch you next time. See you later.